All right, we're going to go ahead and get started very quickly here. And I'm excited. The Christmas music is excited too. We're going to go ahead and get started. And I'll have the privilege of introducing to you Wilma. Wilma is Beth's machine now, belonged to her mother. And the namesake of the machine is her mom's name. That's the best I can explain it. It's a very special machine, and it's been in the family a long time. It was in storage, and it got all the effects of the humidity and the stickiness of Louisiana, and certainly, being in storage in other places. Machines will just gum up and lock up, and they don't want to do anything until they go through a major spa day. So Wilma and I have been spending a lot of time together, and I shared countless pictures with Beth, showing her the process that I took Wilma through to get her back and to get her ready to do a dance today at this live stream. I always say when a machine gets its greatness back, it gets its moxie back, it's ready to step out onto the red carpet and to show what she can do. And I'll tell you one thing, Wilma can do a lot. Now, after going through hours and hours and hours on the workbench, she's ready to go through the sewing Olympics and show what she can do, and then hopefully head towards Louisiana pretty quick so that Beth in her retirement can begin to celebrate this marvelous 401A
that, as the title suggests, was exchanged. So this machine would have been brought by another customer to an approved Singer Sewing Center, and that Singer Sewing Center would have taken this machine in as a trade so that that owner could buy a different machine, maybe a newer machine or a different machine that they wanted to acquire. And that is sometimes the greatest way to get a priceless treasure, is when someone else looks at a machine and goes, well, it's not for me anymore. And then Wilma stumbles across this machine and goes, oh yeah, this is mine now, and it's never, ever going to get exchanged again. It's going to stay in the family as an heirloom. It's going to stay in the family and be celebrated every single time someone sits down to her and puts her to work to create something beautiful. And what a perfect time to be heading home to Louisiana as the holidays are quickly approaching, as Christmas is approaching, and all those memories are flooding into that family and flooding into Beth's memories of seeing her mom behind this machine. And I don't know if Beth ever sat down to this machine as a little girl, but she'll have a chance now in her retirement to celebrate this marvelous, marvelous machine. So, and you may have seen our friend kind of pop his head in. I should explain. You may have seen our friend pop into the scene at the beginning. This is the Singer Sewing Machine Repairman. And the Singer Sewing Machine Repairman is one of my little friends in the workshop that, as I'm working on a great machine like Wilma, he'll pop over and give me some tips and some suggestions on what I should be looking for, because he's handled so many of these machines. He also would have been the guy going door to door back in the day and, presenting these machines to potential customers, demonstrating them, and ultimately selling one of these machines, usually on an installment program. Back in the day, one of these Singer 401As would have been a major, major, major investment for a family. And Fred, the Singer Sewing Machine Repairman, would have signed up a contract with that potential owner and then started collecting installment payments from that owner until it was paid off. So realize buying a 401A back in the day was like buying, buying a Tesla or buying a Lexus or buying a Cadillac. You name the fancy car that you have on your wish list, or maybe you have it in your garage. And that's the type of investment that buying a 401A would have been back in the day. Now, it's interesting. I've presented the 222K, the featherweight of featherweights, on this channel numerous times. And if you don't know what a 222K is, you can Google it. I refer to it, and others around the world refer to that machine, the 222K, as the queen of singers. Now, up until today, there never has been. I've been asked numerous times. I've gotten text messages in the middle of the night from Germany, from Australia, saying, Scott, what is the king of singers? You've never declared a machine as the king of singers. You said the 222K, the featherweight of featherweights, is the queen of singers. What's the king of singers? Well, I am declaring today officially on this channel that the 401A is in fact the king of singers. The 401A is the king of singers. Now, I know that the 401A that we're presenting today, Wilma, is a lady. I get it. But I'm going to declare that the 401A series that was introduced by Singer right around 1956, and the 401A was produced from 1956 until right around 1961. This machine is deserving of that title. It simply is. It is one of the most marvelous engineering wonders that Singer ever produced. By its engineering design and its complexity, as I went through Wilma, and I checked every corner and every crevice and every inch of Wilma to make sure that she was ready to head home to Beth. I just marveled at the engineering that went into this machine to create it all the way back in 1956. So Wilma can wear the crown as the queen of Beth's family, and now the 401A can wear the crown of the king of Singer sewing machines worldwide. And you watch, because of the influence of this channel, because of how long I've been talking to people around the world about the greatness of vintage sewing machines and certainly contemporary machines as well. Like I say, every machine deserves greatness. Every machine deserves greatness. Whether it was a machine like this that was exchanged at a Singer sewing center back in the day, and Wilma and her family came across her and said, "You're coming home with us." These machines are engineering masterpieces. Today, if we were to try to recreate a 401A that was made in Anderson, South Carolina, to create a machine like this, like Wilma, would probably cost the manufacturer well over $3,000. And that's if they really, really were efficient with their resources and with the manpower to create this. And with retooling a factory to try to create a machine like this, this would be a $3,000 to $4,000 machine that then they would try to turn around to the public and sell this machine to the public for around $6,000 to $8,000. Does it give you an idea of what a treasure Wilma is? And every 401A that comes on this workbench after that, that now has the official title of King of Singer sewing machines. So all of you that have been pestering me and texting me in the middle of the night for years now saying, "Scott, what is the King of Singer sewing machines? You've got to declare some machine the king." The 401A, officially today. All right, a little bit more Christmas music. I'm going to go ahead and get Wilma ready to do her premiere today before this audience and by all the thousands that watch this later. And I think you'll be impressed by what a marvelous, marvelous machine this 401A, and what a treasure Wilma is to Beth and her family. All right, let me go ahead and stop the Christmas music for now. And I'm going to walk you around Wilma just a little bit. And if you've never seen a 401A before, you'll have a chance to just learn the lay of the land a little bit, so that if you happen to visit an estate sale or somewhere else like that, you'll right away recognize the machine that's before you, and you'll right away try to find a way to scoop that machine up. And if it has some of the challenges and troubles that Wilma did coming to Kentucky, then you can always send that 401 or 401A into the workshop, and I'll be happy to take your 401A through the same process that Wilma went through. Probably from beginning to end, you're looking at probably close to 16 hours. 16 hours that Wilma and I spent time together. And Beth can attest to the pictures I sent. And I only document probably about 40 to 45% of the processes and steps that I take a machine through. And I probably texted, I probably burned up Beth's phone, literally burned her phone up, sending her picture after picture after picture of different regions of the machine that I was going through, and getting that back to better than factory standard, so that Wilma would be able to do that dance today. There's just so many areas of a machine with this engineering complexity that you have to touch to make sure that machine is as it should be. And it takes a long time to do that, but it's well worth it in the end. And this machine now is fortified with workshop magic to stand up even against the humidity and the stickiness of Louisiana. And I'm sure that Beth will probably keep Wilma in a very safe, climate-controlled area, so that she doesn't revert back to some of the rust issues and other issues that were going on with her, having been stored in a setting where she didn't have that protection, if that makes sense. So let me walk you around a little bit, and I'll show you the lay of the land on Wilma. And we'll go ahead and get sewing on this great machine. Okay? So we'll start over here. Right away, you can tell Singer's attention to detail by the fact that they want you to be able to set your 401A up properly. So right inside of the faceplate area, they have a threading diagram for the 401A. And they also show you the orientation of the bobbin as well, right near the bottom here, so that you can set your 401A up properly, just as I've done with Wilma, so that she can do her dance today. And you can see the mechanics even inside of the faceplate area here, which are gleaming. They're gleaming now and shiny and properly lubricated, so that all of these mechanics in the faceplate area, which would some of the stitches that are cam generated by this 401A, there's a lot of movement underneath the hood when that machine is executing those stitches. And all of those components of the machine need to be able to do the pivot and the pitch and everything else they need to be able to do to generate that very complex stitch. I'll show you those stitches in just a second, and give you the opportunity, as we go through the sew-offs today, to choose the stitch of your liking and choose the material that we sew on as well. We've got a wide field of materials today that we potentially can sew. I'll just give you a quick little glimpse of them. We've got to untangle the camera a little bit here. I mean, we've got Italian leather. We've got kind of a hand tool type leather, another type of Italian leather, genuine cowhide. We're going to be sewing in a circle as we normally do as well. More cowhide as well. We're going to be going through at least 2 layers, which is about 8 ounces of leather. We've got Amazon packing parchment paper. Hopefully we get to that today. We've got canvas. We've got U.S. Army grade canvas. We've got denim. We've got all kinds of ribbon material that are a composition of, it's one of our cameras going off. I've got to see if I can silence it. We've got all kinds of ribbons, ribbon type materials that are a combination of polyester rayon, and you name it, real tricky materials to sew because of that slippery back on them. So we're going to be trying to sew some of those as well with Wilma today. All of this over here you can see, and we'll be laying down a wide variety of different stitches on them also. And these are just a few of the stitches that I did after I took Wilma through that process that we'll be duplicating today during this live stream. And realize these stitches are not generated by a computer board. They're all mechanically generated through that camshaft and through the other functions of the machine. So it gives you an idea, again, of the engineering marvel of the 401A introduced in the late 1950s. And this machine was only produced from 1956 until 1961. After that, there were other machines that rolled out, like the 500A and the 503A as well. Sometimes those two machines are referred to as the Rocketeer. Many of you have seen that machine, those machines demonstrated as well on this channel. And I believe we're going to be having a 500, if I remember correctly, it's either a 500A or a 503A. I think it's a 500A that one of our leadership team members, Jenny, is looking at sending to Kentucky to go through the same process that Wilma did. So you'll have to watch in the coming months, sometime after the first of the year, Jenny from, I believe the great state. I never remember where Jenny is from. Isn't that horrible? I want to say Ohio. I believe that Jenny is from Ohio, and Jenny's going to be sending her 500A to the workshop to go through the same intense process that Wilma just went through. So keep watch for that. Then you'll have a chance to see one of the original Rocketeers, as they refer to it. Just one of the most, I'll just say it. I know this is family friendly, but the 500A and the 503A are two of the sexiest machines that Singer ever made. They're curvaceous. They just flow as far as the lines of the machine. And that's also true of the 401A, that whole series of Slantomatics that came out in the late 1950s, early 1960s. Singer was trying to compete against folks like Necke and some of the Elna machines, where they were really giving those machines the sexiest streamlining lines to just make them look like a voluptuous beauty that would stitch up a storm. And so Singer jumped into the mix of that too and said, we can make beautiful, sexy machines just like the Italians, just like the Swiss. And they did. Boy, did they do that. Elna started to really get nervous, and certainly Necke got nervous as well as Singer rolled out more and more models like this 401A in 1956, and then later the 500A and the 503A as well. Now, if anyone wants to capture it, I always go over these facts because it's important that we understand the Slantomatic series. Why did Singer come out with it? Who started the Slantomatic series? And what are some of the other machines that are in that Slantomatic series? I'm going to rattle that information off. And if one of the leaders, Susie or anyone else that's in the live stream right now, wants to try to capture that and type that into the live chat, I would greatly appreciate that. That way, others that watch this later as a video can go ahead and write down those facts as well. Because, you know, visiting some of the other the other places on Facebook, the other places on Etsy and Pinterest, there are people sometimes quoting the facts very, very wrong. They get the dates of the 401A wrong. I think one person I saw posted that the 401A came out in the 1970s. Seriously? So you can be the fact checkers as you go out into your circles and educate people, you know, in a kind way. Get them straight on the Slantomatic series. It's such a wonderful series, and it came out with such a great purpose from the Singer Sewing Machine Company, originally in Elizabethport, New Jersey, and then later, like Wilma, in Anderson, South Carolina. So let me give you those facts real quick right now. And if someone will note them and then repost them into the live chat, I would be grateful for that, truly. So the Slant-O-Matic series started right around 1951. 1951 was the start of the Slant-O-Matic series, and it started with the Singer 301A. The Singer 30, actually, let me correct myself. I apologize. It actually started with the 301. It started with the 301, and that was at Elizabethport, New Jersey. And the 301 came on the scene in 1951. It was produced for about 2 years. And then on the scene came in 1953, the 301A that would have been made at the same factory in Anderson, South Carolina as Wilma. Wilma was made in Anderson, South Carolina right around 1956. About 3 years earlier, the 301A came on the scene and was made in that same factory. And that happened because in Elizabethport, New Jersey, they started kind of, turning the screws down on that factory a little bit. It was too expensive to retool it to do some of the machines that they were projecting to do. And so they decided to build a brand new factory down in Anderson, South Carolina. So, and some of that factory, I'm told, is still standing. We, a number of years ago, had the privilege of interviewing on this channel a gentleman that actually visited the factory in Anderson, South Carolina, ran his own Singer sewing store where a machine like Wilma would have been exchanged. Someone would have walked in with a 401A and said, "Hey, I'm looking to get a different machine." And this gentleman would have allowed them to exchange that machine for another one. And I'll actually show you this gentleman, as a thank you for the opportunity of me interviewing him, actually sent all of these beautiful pens. I'll see if I can show them to you. Sent all of these beautiful pens. And this is Susie and Frank Wilson. You can see it right there. Frank Wilson, if you look on the channel underneath VIP interviews, you'll see me interview. It's only Frank didn't know how to do the video thing and all that. So it's only an audio interview with Frank Wilson. But you need to listen to this man talk about his experience of working for Singer back in the time that Wilma would have been born, right around in the 1950s. And Frank and Susie give these pens out to their friends and closest, people that they love and they want to love on. And so if anyone in the audience, matter of fact, you know what, for fun, I think I'll enclose one of these pens with Wilma and send it back to Louisiana. And if Beth wants to choose, looks like we've got some blue ones, a red one, a black one, and a couple of gray ones left that Frank had sent me back in Oconto, Wisconsin. But if Beth wants to choose one of these, she can then have this pen in her sewing area and remember Frank Wilson. I'm only guessing, and I hope I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that by now Frank Wilson has probably passed along. So these are really treasures, really, really special treasures. Frank and his wife, Susie, had taken time to pack this up and mail it to me back in Oconto and said, "We want you to have these. And if you want to share them with the Cow Country family, you can do that." So if Beth wants to choose a purple, a red, a black, or a gray one, I'll mail this back with Wilma, and then she can have this as an added treasure. And hopefully any of you that haven't seen that interview yet or heard that interview with Frank Wilson on this channel, look it up later today or over the weekend when you have extra time and listen to this man speak and the insights that he shares about running his own Singer store, going to the factory in Anderson, South Carolina. I believe he also went to Elizabethport, New Jersey as well, and just learn about this great guy. Okay, so I'm going to set aside, there's two different colors of blue, actually. This is kind of a purple and a blue. So Beth wants to just tell me if she wants the one on the left or the right. The left or the right. I'll go ahead and put this aside right now so I don't goof up. They're just a little bit different shade of blue. I think that's a little bit bluer, this one, but okay. I'll pick this one. This is a little bit bluer. I'm going to set this to the side right now. But yeah, Frank Wilson, what a privilege to interview a man that had actually been in these factories where Wilma would have been created. Okay, so we were talking about the 301 came out in 1951. The 301A came out in 1953, and the 301 they only made, to give you an idea of how limited their production was of this particular machine at the beginning of the Slant-O-Matic series, because to make a Slant-O-Matic was so much more complex than making a standard Singer sewing machine, because of the way the needle bar needed to move, and just the basic mechanics of that machine were very different. So during the time that they made the 301, almost exclusively in 1952 and 1951 to 1952, they only made 185,750. 185,750. That was a very small, very, very small production group for Singer. And that's all they ever made of the 301 from 1951 to 1952. The 301A from 1953 to 1957. So the 301A was still being produced when the 401A was introduced in 1956. And the 301A, which again was made in Anderson, South Carolina, the same place that Wilma was born, they made about 514,250. 514,250. That again is an incredibly small number of machines to make in any series by Singer. Their average production size for one run was typically 50 to 100,000 machines. That's just one run. And they would do numerous runs for one machine during the year. And so these machines are incredibly rare. They're more rare than the featherweights. I talk about that all the time on this channel. Everyone brags about featherweight. They made about 3.5 million featherweights between the 301 from 1951 to 1952 and the 301A from 1953 to 1957. They only made less than a million machines. If anyone wants to do the math, you can add 514,250 and 185,750, and you'll have the total number of machines that were made in the 301 and 301A series. About a third of the number of machines they made into featherweights, approximately. So I always tell people, I refer to the 301 and the 301A as the big sister to the featherweight, because it has that tilt bed, just like the featherweight, but they're so much more precious than a featherweight. They truly are. A standard featherweight, a 221. When you get into the ones that were made in Kilbowie, Scotland, the 222Ks, and my Susie has one of those. Those are incredibly rare. They only made a handful of the 222Ks. But at any rate, moving on to the series of the Slant-O-Matics, after the 301 and 301A that introduced the Slant-O-Matic series that Wilma is a part of, they came out right after the 301 and 301A. They came out with the 401A series. that Wilma is a part of. And again, that was from 1956 to 1961. Then came the 403A. The 403A was produced from 1958 until 1960. So a real short run on that machine. And the 403A allowed you to do a straight stitch, a zigzag. It could take cams, just like Wilma. Wilma could do cams as well. As a matter of fact, Beth sent one of the cams with Wilma. I don't plan on using this cam, but this is the type of cam that the 403, the 401, and a number of the other series of Slant-O-Matics can use. And that gives you a couple more stitches. I don't think we really need them because there are so many built-in stitches in the 401A. It's just, it'll blow you away when you see inside of the lid on top all the stitches that you could potentially pick from today for me to demonstrate during this live stream. So it's interesting. After the 403A was introduced in 1958 and produced until 1960, they ended up going to a straight stitch machine only in the Slant-O-Matic series. And that was the Singer 404. And if any of you remember our dear friend that passed away, she lived out in Pennsylvania. And any of you that have been a part of this for a while, I'm going to have you type her name into the live chat. But she contributed to one of our fundraisers, and I was able to mail her a 404 Singer that she enjoyed until the last day that she was walking the earth. She said that that was the finest straight stitch sewing machine that she had ever sewn on. And so Singer didn't do anything bad by going to the 404, but it was kind of a pivot from these machines that were so complex with so many built-in decorative and ornamental stitches that were cam generated. And then they decided, we're just going to go to a straight stitch machine. And they did that with the 404 from 1958 until 1963. They produced it for quite a long time. And then came the 500A, like Jenny has out in Ohio, that she's looking to send to the workshop after the first of the year. And that was the beginning of the Rocketeer series, as a lot of people refer to it, because of the cruise line and the streamline body design of these machines. They were just absolutely like the 401A. They were just the sexiest machines on the earth. And the 500A, like Jenny has out in Ohio, was produced from 1961 until 1963. In that same window, they produced the 503A, and the 503A was also produced from 1961 until 1963. And with that 503A and the 500A, that ended the proud legacy of the Slant-O-Matic series that started in 1951 and finally ended in 1963, about 12 years later, I guess it is. I'm not good with math. Anyway, it started in 51 and ended in 63. I think that's around 11 or 12 years that they produced the Slant-O-Matic series. Well, why did they do it? Why did Singer produce the Slant-O-Matic series? It was for a variety of reasons. One is they wanted to produce a machine that instead of having a rear-mounted motor would have a tower-style motor like this one that was inside of the pillar. See if I can get it in the camera shot here. They wanted to produce a tower-style motor that was inside of the pillar of the machine. The pillar of the machine is this area right here where the badge mark is. So right inside of here, in this space right here, is this motor mounted vertically inside of Wilma. And they wanted to do that because the motor has these worm style gears on top. If you can see that in the shot, they have these worm style gears that as the motor fires up, it turns like this. And then there are gears that are part of the balance wheel. There are gears that are part of the balance wheel where these two interlace, and this turns, and then the balance wheel immediately receives the power from the motor without any slippage of a belt, without any slide of a belt, and you get direct power, you get positive traction directly from the motor to the balance wheel. It's sent down the main shaft through the machine. See if I can get a hold of the camera here. It's sent from the balance wheel straight down the main shaft of the machine to the needle bar, and then directly down to the material. So the benefit was, number one, you get unprecedented power. You get power that you never ever would get from a belt-driven machine. And you never have to replace a belt. And the gears off of the motor on the 401 are metal. So you basically have something that never wears out. And you have something that never has to be replaced. Then beyond that, they also added a slant feature to the needle bar. So if you look at the needle bar and the presser foot as well from the side, you'll notice that the presser foot and the needle bar have an angle forward. And they did that because they wanted to give the sewist the opportunity to see the stitching earlier on. By the needle bar being angled forward and the presser foot being angled forward, as the stitches are being laid down, the sewist can see those stitches at the front of the presser foot instead of always having to look behind the presser foot and try to see what the stitching is looking like. Whether or not there needs to be a tension adjustment or there's a feed factor or whatever it is, now with the Slant-O-Matic series, they were able to see those stitches much earlier on, and it was a great advantage to the sewist in being able to make adjustments much more quickly if needed during a project. Then they also added a different feature that was unique to the Slant-O-Matic series. You can kind of see it past the upper tension here. Instead of dropping the feed dogs, which had always been the tactic of Singer and a lot of the other manufacturers, they said, let's not drop the feed dog. Let's raise the throat plate. And so they did that. They designed a throat plate. Let me go ahead and close this. They designed a throat plate riser that's controlled by these two pistons right here, this piston here and that piston over there. And as you move this slider over here, see if I can do it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you both at the same time. Just know that I'm going to be moving this slider over here. Delicate like silk or satin, you can raise that throat plate up just a little bit so the feed dogs don't bite that material as hard. They're a little bit more gentle. Or if you want to push it all the way up like that, you can then rotate this throat plate out of the way and clean out all the lint. If you're sewing fleece or something like that, you can clean out all the lint very easily by just pushing this throat plate to the rear and keep that raceway area clean for better stitching. And then when you're done, you just push the throat plate controller back and it locks down in place again so that you're ready to resume sewing. Also has the wonderful drop-in bobbin as well. And it's got that floating raceway where the raceway and the hook system is moving underneath the bobbin case that kind of floats on top of the hook system. And periodically, you'll want to add just a little bit of lubricant to the area of the machine right here on the ledge of that raceway area where the hook turns. If I turn the hook a little bit, you'll see the hook going back and forth. See that? And because the bobbin case is floating on top of that hook system, you'll want to put just a tiny little drop of oil right on the edge, like I'm doing right now. You saw I just squirted a little bit of oil. And what that does is it creates that floating little cushion so that as that raceway is spinning ferociously during the stitching process, that bobbin case isn't creating any drag against that hook. And it's floating against there very evenly and very smoothly. and giving that machine a great deal of stealth and silence. Wilma, as a 401A, is going to be one of the quietest, most stealthy, silent machines that Singer ever made that you'll ever sew on. And it's because of that hook system, because that hook system moves just effortlessly underneath that bobbin case, and it just whisks around during the sewing process. If I were to have this open, it would blow you away how fast that hook is moving underneath this bobbin case, around and around and around and around, very, very quickly. As you drop the bobbin in, you'll notice that it's going to be turning counterclockwise. So as you bring the bobbin in, the thread will be over the top. You'll draw it into this point right here. There's just a tiny little opening right here. You'll draw the thread in there so it goes underneath the tension discs, and then you pull that thread to the rear, and then when you rotate your balance wheel, you can pull that thread up very, very easily to begin your sewing process. But lubricating that little sill area, probably about every 6 to 8 hours of sewing, just putting a tiny little drop of oil on there will keep the machine running quietly and smoothly, and Wilma will smile if you do it. Wilma will have a big grin. Let's see. I'll take you around the rest of the machine, and then we're going to get sewing on this machine. We've been running already almost an hour with all of my blah, blah, blahing. I didn't even ring the bell yet to start the class, and I'm just blah, blah, blahing, and we haven't even started sewing yet. So I'm going to get that into place. I'll just briefly walk you around the 401A and give you an appreciation for her setup and her complexity, okay? So I've already shown you inside of the faceplate. Up here, we have a very crucial adjuster for presser foot pressure. If you turn this clockwise, you're going to increase presser foot pressure. So as we're sewing some of these heavier leathers, I might bump this up a little bit by turning it just a little bit clockwise so there's more pressure down. As we sew some of the lighter materials like the ribbon materials, I might turn this counterclockwise to reduce that presser foot pressure. The pressure is going to come down to the presser foot and push that material into the feed dogs so that you get an even, nice, smooth feed of the material over the feed dogs. If you don't adjust this, and recently Susie and I have met a number of customers that have machines that have an adjustment like this, either on top or inside of the faceplate, they never understood what it was for. They never understood. And so they're yanking on the material, they're pushing the material, trying to get the material to feed, not realizing it's a matter of simply adjusting this up or down, depending on the type of material or the number of layers that you're sewing with, to make the machine like Wilma. Wilma wants to help you. Wilma wants to work for you, but she can't do it if you don't use the resources that she has. So make sure you do that on your 401A, and your Wilma will be very, very happy with you. Getting a quick sip of tea. My voice is a little bit dry today. So our upper tension is right up here, and I'll go over briefly the threading, even though they have the threading in the faceplate area right here, like I showed you. Inside of the faceplate, it's sometimes easier to see it than to look at a diagram. Don't you agree? So we'll see if we can go over the threading as well. But our upper tension right now, I showed Beth this upper tension totally disassembled because there was a lot of rust inside of here. And I had to clean every single piece of the upper tension by hand polish it, and get all of that rust off, getting those surfaces just absolutely pristine again. But as you disassemble an upper tension like on the 401A, which I should probably do during one of these live streams, I'll just get a 401A upper tension, or maybe when I get the upper tension for Jenny's 500A, I'll tear it apart during the live stream and show you how to reassemble it, because there's a little bit of a trickiness to it. As you get to the part of reassembling it to this stage right here, you've got to set the pre-tension on the upper tension. There's going to be a spring on the inside of here, And then there's a little adjuster that you have to pre-calibrate. You've got to pre-calibrate the tension. You can't calibrate it too high because then you won't be able to get the full range of the tension up to 9 on here. It goes from 0 to 9. If you calibrate it too high, you won't be able to turn this all the way. If you calibrate it too low, you're going to be operating with the upper tension up on 7 or 8 or maybe even 9 to try to get that tension balance between the bobbin case and the upper tension. So remind me, I need to demonstrate that in a future live stream, how to tear this down, how to clean it, how to reassemble it, how to calibrate it, and get it set up for success like Wilma is right now. But this is such a crucial component of the machine. The upper tension, remember this, the upper tension pulls up on the thread in the sewing process. So the upper tension is going to be defining the stitching on the bottom of the material. The bobbin case that you saw a moment ago inside of here is going to be pulling down. It's going to be pulling down to define the top stitching. And they have to get along. They have to cooperate with each other in that tug of war so that ultimately that knot that's created in the sewing process is centered on the material. So you have beautiful stitching here and you have beautiful stitching on the bottom as well. If they don't cooperate, you're not going to get that beautiful balance. So remind me, and I'll do that in a future live stream. We'll tear apart an upper tension. We'll clean it using a Dremel tool, using dental tools, maybe even using a little bit of steel wool, and then we'll reassemble it. We'll lubricate the parts of the upper tension that need to be lubricated. The other parts of the upper tension need to be squeaky clean to do their job. Are you getting the impression that this is something we need to learn, isn't it? It's something I need to share with all of you so you can do it on your Slant-O-Matic machines and certainly some of your regular Singer machines in your sewing suite. Okay? Remind me. Yes. Okay. So around Wilma real quick, this is a control center for a number of things right here. It looks real complex, doesn't it? I've had a number of people say to me over the years, the 401A scares me to death. The 401A scares me to death. It's got all these doodads. It's like the cockpit of a 747. How in heaven's name am I ever going to figure this thing out? Well, once you sit down and you take a deep breath, if you have to breathe in a paper bag, that's okay. Breathe in a paper bag for a little bit. Slow yourself down. It's not so bad. It really isn't. It's not so bad at all. This control here on the front is going to get pushed in, and it's going to go between A and J. A and J. Let me see if I can give that to you in the shot. I'll move my finger out of the way. So this control here is going to control this side between A and J. The white one you're going to pull towards you. You pull this towards you. Okay? And it's going to control everything from special, which special is a setting you use when you're using cams up here. Special is for cams. So this white one is going to control everything from special to K. Wasn't there a cereal called Special K or something like that? So the white one is going to control special to K. The brownish tan one is going to control A to J. And that's important to know because as we select some of these stitches, you're going to have to know what those letters are so I can set up Wilma to sew that stitch for you, okay? We're going to have to know that. How are we going to know that? We're going to look inside of the lid and then we'll know straight away, okay? This control right here does two things. It's going to give you the opportunity when you're straight stitching, it's going to give you the opportunity to set the needle position, left needle position or center needle position right here. When you're sewing anything other than a straight stitch, it's going to give you the opportunity to set the stitch width. This is going to control needle position and stitch width when you're not straight stitching, okay? Over here, we're going to have reverse and we're going to have stitch length. So as we move this down to the bottom like I am right now, we're going to get the longest stitch possible that Wilma can do. It's going to be about 5 to 6 stitches per inch. As we move it up into the fine range, and you notice I'm loosening this. It's designed to kind of bite in so that it doesn't move when you're sewing. So as you set your stitch length, you can kind of screw this back in like that, and it's going to lock that in so that the stitch length doesn't move while you're doing a project. That's really annoying when that happens. I know it's happened to all of us. As we do some of the more decorative ornamental stitching, we're going to move all the way up into the fine range. You see where the word says fine right there? That's going to get us into the 25 to 30 stitches per inch. Teeny tiny little stitching, but we need that for some of the ornamental decorative type stitching. And then if we push this control, we're going to be sewing in reverse. So our reverse is all the way to, we then get into our fine range, 25 to 30 stitches per inch. And then we move down, 15 stitches per inch, 10 inches per inch, 8 stitches per inch, 7 stitches per inch, and all the way down to about 5 to 6 stitches per inch, all the way at the bottom. Okay. There we've got our badge mark, our beautiful badge mark of Singer. And we've got our additional badge mark of the 401A. If you didn't know it, well, let me ask it as a question instead of just giving you the answer. What year did Singer start introducing this subplate that described the class of the machine? What year did Singer introduce this subplate right here where it says 401A? What year did they introduce the subplate in their series of machines, including Wilma, that would have come out in 1956? So we know it was 1956 or earlier. If anyone knows, type it in the live chat as a guess, and we'll go ahead and give you a pat on the back because that's important to know that. So as you're answering that, I'm going to go over here. This is our bobbin winder. I replaced the bobbin winding tire. It was really pretty cracky and worn out. As you're winding a bobbin, you'll disengage the clutch on the side of the balance wheel. You hold the outside of the balance wheel, and then you grab the silver disc in the middle, the stop action, and you rotate it towards you to disengage the main shaft from the needle. And then you rotate this into the balance wheel, mount your bobbin right there, and then you can fill that bobbin up. You simply come with your thread from here. You come underneath this tensioner, and then you come up to your bobbin, give it a couple of winds. And this can be adjusted right here to control how full that bobbin gets. If you loosen this little screw and you drop this down, your bobbin's not going to fill as full. If you loosen this little screw and you push it up to move this further away from the bobbin, you're going to get a more full bobbin. So if you need to adjust that on your machine, you can go ahead and do that. Okay? So I didn't look at the live chat yet, but I'm going to do that right now and see if anybody nailed the year that they introduced that subplate, not just on the 401A, but on all of their machines got that subplate. Let's see. It looks like nobody guessed it. So if one of the members in the audience would be so kind as to type 1951. 1951 is the year that Singer introduced that subplate that gave the class of the machine, this little plate down here. And they didn't just do that on their household sewing machines. They did that on their industrial machines. They did it on their commercial machines. Every machine that they made from 1951 forward had that subclass plate added to the machine so that right away you could look at it and know that that machine was a 401A, or know that that machine was, a 301A, whatever it was. They would know that straight away. So as we look back at the Slant-O-Matic series that was introduced in 1951 with the 301 in Elizabethport, New Jersey, that kind of tells you that the impetus, the motivation, the impetus to develop that subplate came with the introduction of the Slant-O-Matic series. So that's another defining point of Singer, is that they prior to that had never had that subclass plate. But when they introduced the Slant-O-Matic series in 1951, they said, we're going to add a subplate so that right away they know what that machine is. And they did it with all of the Slant-O-Matics. They did it with all of their other class machines as well after 1951. Yeah. All right. So finally, why don't we get busy and see if we can put Wilma to work? She's been tapping her toe the whole time I've been blah, 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 and saying, would you please stop talking? Beth is waiting to see me do my dance, for goodness sakes. Beth is waiting patiently. Everybody else is waiting patiently. Would you stop talking, Scott, and put me to work? Okay, let's do it. So the only thing I'll show you real quick, is that exchanged sticker right here. I think that that's a badge of honor on Wilma. I think that's an absolute badge of honor, even more so than this badge up here, even more so than this badge right here of the subclass. This is the biggest badge of honor in Wilma because it shows that someone else got so confused, was probably drinking too many margaritas, and they said, you know what? This 401A is really cool, but, I think I'm going to get a newer machine that's going to break in 6 months. What a crazy person. They gave up the king of Singer sewing machines to get a newer machine that probably ended up breaking a year after they got it. And with a lot of spa love and a lot of detailed deep cleaning and degumming and everything, Wilma is as good as when she was created in the factory in Anderson, South Carolina back in 1956. And she is going to be sewing long after I'm gone, long after Beth is gone, long after a lot of people are gone. Wilma will still be sewing like she's brand spanking new. This is probably, it's the most significant way of saying that person was really, really confused because they gave up the king of Singer sewing machines for a machine that there's no way that machine is even around anymore, that they exchanged to turn in Wilma and get another machine. That other machine is in a junk heap somewhere right now, probably in a landfill. And look at Wilma. She's as gorgeous as she was back in 1956. Isn't she beautiful? Isn't she one of the most beautiful machines you've ever seen? Yeah. So if you ever see one of these on a Slant-O-Matic, you can say that poor person was so confused. They gave up a treasure and they bought a machine that's not even around anymore. Yep, that's what they did. All right. So we're going to start with a basic straight stitch. We're going to start with a basic straight stitch. How do we get a straight stitch from the 401A? Well, let me take down the spool of thread on top, and I'll show you how to do that. So we open up the hood, as I call it up here, and all of a sudden we have a realization of the engineering marvel of this machine that was introduced in 1956. All of these stitches up here in the primary patterns, down here in the combination patterns, all of these stitches are built into Wilma without ever having to add one of these plastic fashion discs, one of these cams. Every single one of these stitches is built into Wilma, and we can sew every single one of them today if you want. So let me see if I can get a good shot of this so you can see the different stitches. Grab a piece of paper and a pen. If you see a stitch that really jumps off at you and you say, I want to see that one, I want to see that one, write down the two letters that are associated with that stitch, and then remember the materials that we're going to sew, and then type in the live chat what stitch you want to see and what material you want to see that stitch sewn on. And that includes the owner, Beth. If Beth sees any of these stitches, she says, I really want to see that one. then we'll go ahead and sew that one. Now, the one thing I'll show you is that these different series of stitches, the primary patterns and the combination patterns, might just require a slight adjustment as far as the stitch width. For example, these up here, the primary patterns, let's see if I can give you a real clear view of that. Get my finger out of the way. Hold on a second. Move my laptop screen a little bit. There we go. I think I got it. Okay, so you can see the primary, whoops, you could see it. I just knocked over something. You can see the primary patterns up there. It's basically BL through BR. Again, we're not going to be sewing with the cam today that Beth sent with Wilma. That last one, the BS special, would be where you would set the machine if you're going to sew with a plastic fashion disc or a cam. So we're going to be concentrating on the primary patterns of BL through BR. BL is going to basically be our zigzag sewing machine. That's going to be our zigzag stitch. And then we have all these other decorative utility type stitches that go from BL all the way over to BR. Hopefully you can see that. I think you can see that. When we sew those, primary patterns on top, the only requirement we have is that we have to set that stitch width at a setting less than 5. Do not set it at 5, set it at less than 5. And that's that control right here that also gives us needle position. So if we're going to sew one of the primary patterns, we can go all the way up to 4, or we can go all the way down to 1. I wouldn't go to 1 because you're not going to be able to tell what it is. You got to give it a little bit of room for that needle to define the stitch pattern. But when you're doing the primary patterns, you can technically go from 1 up to 4. Do not go to 5. The only time you'll go to 5 is if you're executing a standard zigzag, which under the primary patterns would be BL. BL is going to be our zigzag. So if you're doing BL, then you can set that stitch width all the way up to 5. If you're doing any of the other primary patterns, don't go any higher than 4. Okay? Hopefully I made that real clear. It'll create issues for you if you don't follow that rule. When you're doing the combination patterns down on the bottom here, I'll see if I can kind of go back and forth and show those to you. When you're doing the combination patterns, you can set that stitch width anywhere from 2 to 4, but they generally recommend that you stay on 3. Okay? So as you're looking at those combination patterns, I'll kind of go back and forth so you can write down the letters that you're interested in. Turning it real slow. Yes, all those combination patterns are engineered. Never have to add a fashion disc. Isn't that crazy? So as you're looking to sew one of these combination patterns, and I can show these to you again, but as you're looking to sew one of those combination patterns down here, you can set your stitch width anywhere from 2 all the way up to 4. I had the camera facing the wrong way. So you can set anywhere from 2 all the way up to 4 for the combination patterns. And again, when you're doing the primary patterns on top, these up here, you can set that anywhere here between 1 and 4, but less than 5. So all the way down here for the primary patterns, all the way up to here. And then with the secondary combination patterns, you're looking at setting it typically in the middle on 3, but you can also go down to 2, which will make that pattern a little bit more narrow. Or you can go all the way up to 4 for the combination patterns, and you can make it a little bit more wide. So I hope I haven't confused you. The only adjustment other than these controls right here to set the appropriate letters is this control right here, which serves as needle position when you're straight stitching, or it serves as stitch width when you're sewing any other stitch. So I'll say it one more time. I know you guys are real smart, but some of you have never seen a 401A before. So I'm going to say it just one more time. Once we set the appropriate letters on here, the first letter is going to be this control. The second letter is going to be this control. So our first letter goes on this side. Our second letter goes on this side. So for example, if we wanted to sew the zigzag, which is BL, you can see that in the shot right there. Our zigzag is going to be BL. We would set our first controller here to B, push it in, rotate it down to B, let it pop back out. We would go to our second control over here. We would pull it out, and we would have to then set this to L. We would pull it out and rotate it up just a little bit. And now we're set to do a zigzag. We set this on B. We set this side on L. This side we set by pushing this in. This side we set by pulling this towards us, the white one, and then we rotate it up or down to the appropriate letter. And again, the only time we would go to the special one on top here is if we inserted a cam into here and we wanted the machine to ignore the cam stack and focus just on the cam that we put in. It's the only time you set this on special, is when you wanted to ignore the cam stack. The cam stack in this machine, I showed it to Beth, is like this. Where's my fingers? I got to go back further. It's like this. It's huge. It's enormous. And it has to be to generate all of these stitches, right? Because if you didn't know it, the way a cam stack works is it has a incredibly precision orientated finger that like a braille runs over those cam bumps, and it interprets those cam bumps to be certain movements of the needle to generate that decorative stitch. Can you imagine the complexity of creating a cam stack to do all of that? It's equally complex to adjust it so it stitches those things properly, which is my job. But to create it originally, oh my goodness gravy, I would love to shake the hand of every Singer engineer that came up with that design. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. So hopefully all that makes sense. When you want a straight stitch, we've got to turn these back to A and K. So right now we're on B and L. BL is going to give us the ability, with adjusting this as well, to do a zigzag stitch. When we want to do straight stitching, we have to change this control over here to A. So I'm pushing this in, releasing it. Now we're on A. And one of the things that Jenny said to me, she said, Scott, my 500A controls are real sticky. I so much wish that they could move more easily. Is that something you can do when you have it in the workshop? Absolutely. Jenny, let me tell you, Wilma's controls would not move at all. They would not move at all. They were totally frozen and gummed up. And I showed you on that one reel on Facebook, I had to use a torch, a propane torch, very carefully, very, very carefully, that generates almost 2,000 degrees to burn off all of that caramelization and then hand polish all of those parts that have to move to allow these mechanisms to move. And I'm going to do the same thing to your 500A when you send it after the first of the year. When you get that 500A back in Ohio, you're going to be able to turn it like it's butter, like a hot knife through butter. So we turn this back to A, and then we're back on straight stitch, but we also have to move this one back to K. So AK is straight stitching. Watch me. Now we're set up for straight stitching. If we want to go back to zigzagging, we move this from A to B, and we move this from K to L. So it's just one little movement, and then all of a sudden we go between straight stitching and zigzagging, okay? All right, so we're set right now for straight stitching. Let's actually do a straight stitch. What do you think? Yeah, let's do a straight stitch. And I'm going to set my needle position is already on center. You can see that. My needle position is on center. My straight stitching is set to the longest stitch, right around 5 to 6 stitches per inch. So we're going to buzz down that, and then we'll pivot over to a zigzag, making our adjustments up here. And then we'll jump into some of the real fun stitches that Wilma can do. And I probably, for this live stream, for the camera's sake, I'm probably going to shut off our LED light. Right now, we're getting a little bit of a glare. Can you see that? We're getting a glare because the LED light is so bright. So I'm going to go and click the LED light off. And I think that'll make it a little bit easier for you to see the stitching as Wilma is laying it down, okay? So we'll leave the light off, but when it gets home to Louisiana, Beth will be able to click it on, and it's just amazing how much light these LEDs put out and little or no heat. Really quite a wonder. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do a straight stitch, and then we'll move on to some other fun stitching. And whenever you launch, I say this all the time, but I'll say it again. Whenever you launch, make sure your take-up arm, this right here, make sure your take-up arm is at the highest position and just beginning that downstroke. See that? It's just beginning its downstroke, and that's going to allow Wilma to really, really do the stitching and the efforts with little or no effort. And I better put my spool of thread back up on top too. That might prove helpful. That might prove helpful. Okay, so we'll do a straight stitch, and then we'll jump to a zigzag, and then we'll jump into some of the fun stitches. All right, here we go. I wasn't trying to give much gas, but Wilma is so irritated with me right now because I was talking so long. She's like, I'm going to give it gas even if you don't. That's what I'm going to do. What a beautiful stitch. Oh my goodness. That is a page, we refer to it on this channel as page 34. Page 34 means that stitching is near perfect. I can't talk to you right now. I'm sorry. I get calls during live streams, and I'm just like, I can't talk to you right now. I can't. I won't. So this is a near perfect stitch. I always say near perfect, even though you would look at this and go, Scott, that's a perfect stitch. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch, the definition of the stitch is as good as it can get. Yeah, it's real close. Wilma did a brilliant job, but it can always get better. It can always get better. So we are looking at an absolutely drop-dead gorgeous stitch that Wilma just laid down, but I would argue it can always get better. Beautiful lock stitching as well on the back of the material. And if we have to make any tension adjustments, we can certainly do that. But right now, I'm satisfied with the lock stitching, and I'm really satisfied with the top stitching. I might bump up our upper tension just a slight bit because it looks like we're just a little weak on the lock stitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a real subtle adjustment because of my pre-calibration. Remember I talked about showing you how to tear this down and then hand polish and hand clean it and then reassemble it and do that pre-tensioning. I did a pre-tensioning on Wilma so that you don't have to turn this upper tension up as far to get what you want. So I'm only set at a little bit over 4 right now, and we could go all the way up to 9. So I'm going to go up to just below 5, right about there. And then we'll do the rest of our stitching. We'll need that upper tension when we go to do the zigzag because those bridge points on the zigzag don't have the support unless that upper tension is defining that pull down and pull up to lock that stitching in. So we have to have that upper tension just right to get the job done. All right, let's go over to a zigzag now. And I'll show you again how to switch between a straight stitch and a zigzag on Wilma on this 401A. Give these a clip. Get that back in place. Now you might be asking yourself, this has that tower motor that you showed us. Wilma has this tower motor built into that pillar area of the machine. How much power does that tower motor on the 401A have? And I'll give you a hint. It's going to be different than the other Slant-O-Matic machines, with the exception of some of the Rocketeers had the same motor in them that the 401A does. But if anyone wants to try to guess what is the amperage of the motor inside of Wilma, then you'll understand why this machine at peak performance, like she is right now, can stitch almost 2,000 stitches a minute. I'm going to say that again. When the 401A has gone through workshop magic and is performing at the peak of her performance like Wilma is right now, if I go pedal to the metal, this machine can do almost 2,000 stitches per minute. That's the equivalent of a commercial sewing machine. That gives you an idea of the power of this tower motor. And when the machine is optimized with workshop magic, what these Slant-O-Matics can do, they will blow your socks off. You know, all I can say to Beth is get your seatbelt on because you're going to need it. She is a very, very powerful girl. Very powerful. Yeah, Susie nailed it. Susie nailed it. The 401A, unlike the 301, the 301A, unlike the 403A, unlike the 404, unlike most of the other Slant-O-Matics, has the largest motor that Singer put in, which is 0.9 amps. So it's almost a full amp motor. And because you don't have that belt factor that creates drag or can slip, that power is going directly from the motor to the balance wheel straight down to the needle. If any of you have cars that have traction control that kicks in if you're on a slippery road, that's what this 401A does. It drives that power straight down to the needle with no slippage, no dragging, no pause. It's just raw power. So that's where, I mean, you've got a machine that can sew practically anything. It can sew practically anything. Okay, so now we're going to adjust it to do a zigzag. And you might remember the zigzag is going to be BL. So we got to take our first control right here, and we've got to move it from A to B. So I'm going to push it in. And now I'm on B. And now I'm going to grab the other control over here, and I've got to go from K to L, right? I got to go from K to L. So I'm going to pull it towards me. And now I'm on L. So now we're ready to zigzag. The only thing we have to decide is how long do we want our zigzag and how wide do we want our zigzag? So I'm going to leave it on the longest setting, and we're going to bump it up to about 4 on the width. Okay, let's do a zigzag, and then we'll jump into some of the real fun stitches. You know what that is? That is practically a perfect stitch, isn't it? Can you see that straight stitching that Wilma just did? I always say near perfect, right? Near perfect. That's pretty much perfect. I'm sorry to say that. It's pretty much perfect. And Wilma did it and made it look.
That was easy. That was easy.
Yeah, she just makes it look too doggone easy. Too doggone easy. All right, let's do a zigzag now. We set our machine up with BL, and now we'll zip down and see if we can do a zigzag with Wilma. My take-up arm is all the way up. Here we go. I'm going to slow her way down. Slow her way, way down. See if I can do that. And again, as you do a zigzag, you might decide to set your stitch length very differently. You might decide to set your stitch width very differently. Again, unlike the primary and the combination patterns, when you're doing a standard zigzag, you could go all the way up to 5 on the stitch width. You can't do that on the combination and the primary patterns, but when you're doing a standard zigzag, you can go all the way up to 5. That's going to give you a super crazy wide zigzag if you need it. Let's take a look at this stitching, see what we think. Bring that to the rear. Yeah, I'm glad we made that adjustment to the upper tension, because as soon as you move into needle swing with a zigzag or any of the other patterns that we're going to be sewing, right away, you've got to give that extra support to the stitching. So this is our top stitching right here. kind of go down and let you look at it from top to bottom. Absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Turn it over and look at that lock stitching. Yeah, I only see like one point where maybe we needed just a little bit more upper tension. One little point right there. And if you ever see those little points where at the peak of the stitch, you'll see a little tuft of the thread, that just means you need to increase your upper tension. So maybe I'll go a little bit higher than 5. But some very, very beautiful stitching. I'm going to adjust that upper tension up just a hair further. And now let's move into some of the fun stitches. If anyone wrote down any of the letters, of the fancy stitches, whether they're primary or whether they're combination stitching, feel free to type those letters into the live chat right now. I'll glance over at the laptop and see if I can duplicate those with Wilma. The only thing I'll tell you is that we're going to have to make a stitch length adjustment as we move into these fancy stitches. We're set all the way down at 5 to 6 stitches per inch. If you're going to be doing these primary patterns that are very ornate, or you're going to be doing these combination patterns that are very ornate, you're going to have to move your stitch length all the way up to the fine region, right about up to there. So we're kind of like almost in the center of the fine region. So we're going to be sewing at about 25 to 30 stitches per inch, very, very teeny tiny. And then we'll probably, for a lot of these, we'll set it right at the center position. Some of them we might go a little bit wider. So I'll see if anybody wrote down those letters. Otherwise, I'll show them to you one more time. And if no one has a letter that they want to, a stitch that they want to see, I'll just randomly start picking them. And I'll write down the different letters that we want to try. Okay, it looks like Susie. So G, let's see here. It looks like Beth is saying, let's try GL. Let's do GL. And I have no idea what GL is. I'll have to take a look and see what it is. Move our thread down. Oh, that's an interesting one. Yeah, GL is one of our combination patterns. You can see it right there. Camera's thinking about focusing. There we go. So Beth wants to see GL, so we're going to set it up to do GL. And I'll show you the patterns one more time. Any of you that are in the audience, if you want to type into the live chat the stitch that you want to see, give me the 2 letters. I'll show you the primary ones again on top, starting from BL to BR. Those are the primary patterns. And then our combination patterns are down here. Trying to get the right angle of the camera here. This camera is saying, I can't see that. There we go. Okay, hopefully that gave you a good view of the various stitches. So we're going to set up Beth's first. Close the lid. I'll get our thread back up there. And that's the only inconvenience, if you will. But they have all these stitches in the owner's manual as well. And I trust that Beth probably has the original owner's manual. If she doesn't, I can check my inventory and see if I can find a 401A owner's manual. I don't know if I have one or not, but I could certainly check. But the owner's manual also is going to have all of these combination patterns with the settings. They're going to have all the primary patterns. And guess what? Inside of your owner's manual, if you have a 401A owner's manual, it's going to give you even a few extra stitches that are not shown on the machine that you can try as well. So if you don't have an owner's manual yet, you want to acquire one. It'll give you good maintenance tips. It'll give you good operating tips. And it's just a great resource to have, isn't it? A great resource to have. Okay, so let's try GL. All right, let's change it to GL. So I'm going to change this control first to G. Push it in, rotate it down to G. There we go. And whenever you're changing these controls, I say this all the time, whenever you're changing these controls, make sure that your needle is clear of the material. Make sure your needle is clear of the material. As I move this, look at the needle down here. See if I can show you the shot at the same time. See it moving? So yeah, make sure your needle is clear of the material. I'm going to put it back on G. And I think the other one was L. We're already set on L on this side, so I don't have to change that. So G, L, and now we have our stitch length set to the fine region for a more decorative stitch. We've got our stitch width on 3. I'm going to go up to 4. Give that machine a little bit more room to operate. Again, we can go up to 4. We cannot go up to 5 on the primary or the combination patterns. Don't go up to 5, only up to 4. Okay? Let's try to sew this pattern for Beth, and then we'll move into some of the other ones. I believe Susie picked one as well. I'm going to write some of these down so I've got them written down. Oh, good. Yeah, Beth does have the owner's manual. Perfect. Let's see here. GL is Beth. And then Susie had one too. Let me see if I can find Susie's real quick. Susie had BQ. And what other ones do we have? It looks like Kevin has IP. IP. Let me see here. Kevin, Susie. Okay, I don't see any other recommendations. So after I do Beth's GL, I do Susie's BQ, and I do Kevin's IP. I'll jump into some of the other stitching and just demonstrate those. And then if anyone has any of the stitching, I'll show you the combination and the primary patterns again. If anyone has other materials that you want to see sewn with the different decorative stitching, we can certainly do that as well. So we'll do Beth's first. We got it all set up with GL. Stitch length is correct. Stitch width is correct. Let's get the camera orientated correctly. There we go. All right, let's do this next pattern. It's one of the more decorative patterns. The GL series is going to be one of the combination patterns. So the only limitations we have on the combination patterns, again, like the GL one that Beth picked, is we can go anywhere from 2 to 4 on the stitch width setting. We don't want to go to 1. We don't want to go to 5, but we can go between 2 and 4, and you'll get some really good results from the pattern. All right, let me make sure I've got all my thread untangled. I think I do. All right, this is for Beth. Wilma is doing a special stitch just for her girl. Here we go. move my hand out of the way. I think it's trying to focus on my hand. All right, I'm going to stop right there. And on this particular pattern, again, depending on your stitch width and your stitch length settings, you can get a different outcome as far as how that stitch pattern presents. If I had gone a little bit longer, it would look different. If I had gone less wide, I went all the way to 4, which is our maximum for a combination pattern. If I had gone to, say, 3 or maybe 2, we can change the look of that pattern dramatically. As a matter of fact, why don't we do that just so you can see the impact that the stitch length and the stitch width have on these combination and primary patterns, okay? I'm going to pull this out first of all. We'll go and take an initial look of it. It looks really quite lovely the way it is. But we can certainly change it up a little bit and just see what impact we can bring to the same stitch pattern. It really ultimately gives you then unlimited opportunities for the stitch presentation. So this is the one that Beth picked, GL, I believe it is. Isn't that spectacular? And again, I didn't go over setup. I did not go over setup. Let me go over setup as well. That's a gorgeous pattern, Beth. I love that one. Here's our lock stitching on the back. You can see that our upper tension was being very, very good. And it laid down some gorgeous lock stitching as well. Beautiful lock stitching. Now, we always talk about page 34 and near perfect stitching, etc. This is near perfect stitching, quite honestly. That's near perfect stitching. It's absolutely drop dead gorgeous. But we could make it even better by sewing with an embroidery thread. If we had an embroidery thread instead of our standard Coats & Clark dual duty XP thread, which is what we're using right now. I've got it around here somewhere. Oh, here it is. This is a thread we're using right now. It's just a basic utility type thread that you can use for hand sewing. You can use it for machine sewing. It's just a nice all-around thread. The Coats & Clark dual duty XP thread. I love it. I use it all the time. But this isn't the ideal thread to be sewing a pattern like this. The ideal thread would be an embroidery thread, almost a floss type thread, and using a much smaller needle. Right now we're using our go-to Schmetz 9014 needle. This is a needle we have in Wilma right now. So we're sewing with kind of a dual duty, generic, middle of the road, all purpose XP thread. And, a 9014 needle is not a small needle, kind of a mid-range needle. So if we were to change up our setup and go to, say, a size 75 embroidery needle and go to an embroidery thread, oh my goodness gravy. If you look at that same stitch after you use a different needle like that by Schmetz and a different type of thread, it's going to blow your socks off. You're going to be like, I thought it couldn't get any better, and it just got better. So that's another tip for all of you. If you have a 401A like Wilma, change up your setup sometimes. I'm always showing you the 9014 needle. I'm always showing you the Coats & Clark dual duty XP thread. Be a what do I want to say? Be a rebel. Be a rebel and say, no. I'm not going to use a 9014 needle today. I'm going with a size 80, or I'm going to go with a size 75 embroidery needle. And I'm going to go with a different type of thread. Coats & Clark is great. Love it. But I'm going to go with a different type of embroidery type thread. And all of a sudden, you'll look at that same stitch and you'll be like, holy mackerel. What a beauty. But even with the basic setup we have with a 9014 needle and a Coates & Clark dual duty XP thread, which is a very fine thread, we've got a gorgeous stitch. Gorgeous stitching. Yeah, very, very nice. All right. I know, Wilma, I know I talk too much. I'll shut up. Let's do Susie's stitch now, which is BQ, I believe. So we're going to do a little bit of a change here. We got to change this control first. We're all the way down by G right now. We need to go all the way up to B. So I'm going to push it in, rotate it up to B. You see how easy those controls move, Jenny? Yours are going to move just like that. It's going to be effortless. It's going to be absolutely effortless. Then we have to change this to Q. So we got to go all the way up there, all the way up there. We're going to go up here. We're set up on Q now. I'll leave our stitch width the same at 4. I'll leave our stitch length. Actually, we'll come down just a little bit. Okay, there we go. And I'll screw it in so that it doesn't move. There we go. Okay, so let's do Susie's stitch now, and then we'll move on to Kevin's stitch after that. And hopefully in the meantime, we'll get some other folks chiming in and expressing what kind of stitch they would like to see Wilma do. Okay, so this is Susie's stitch. Get my take-up arm all the way up. Here we go. This again is going to be BQ, and I believe BQ is also... BQ is going to be one of the primary patterns. So with the primary patterns, we can go all the way up to 4, which is where we're at. We can't go to 5. And our stitch length is set to try to as much definition of that stitch as possible. All right, here we go. And it looks like we did a 3-point zigzag. BQ, I didn't look at it closely, but that looks like a 3-point zigzag that we just did. One of my favorite stitches. I think Susie knows that. One of my absolute favorite stitches. Gorgeous, gorgeous stitching. Wilma is just stitching up a storm. Go ahead and rotate that needle up and get that out of the way, and then we'll go ahead and see if we can take a closer look at this stitching, and we'll move on to Kevin's stitch right after that. So all of you can mark today. Today is, I don't even know what today is. December 2nd. You can mark December 2nd on your calendar as the day that, as many of my friends refer to me because of my skill in the vintage space with sewing machines, they refer to me as the wizard. December 2nd, 2025 is the first day in history that the Wizard of Kentucky now has declared that the 401A is the king of Singer sewing machines. Yeah, the king of Singer sewing machines. Let's take a look at this 3-point zigzag. What a beautiful stitch. Absolutely beautiful stitching. Let's look at it like that too. Absolutely gorgeous. Let's turn over and look at the lock stitching. So here on the lock stitching, we've got a couple of points, very minimal, but we have a couple of points where it looks like we could have a little bit more upper tension. Go across and look at those as well. Yeah, very, very nice stitching. Very, very nice stitching. So let's do Kevin's stitch now, which is the IP. We'll make that adjustment and we'll do that next one now. And IP is going to be one of the combination patterns. So we can go on the stitch width, we can go 2, 3, or 4. 2, 3, or 4 on the combination patterns. But first of all, we have to change it to IP. So we got to take this first control here. We got to take it all the way down near the bottom to I. There we go. I think I have that right spot. And we need to take this one all the way to P. Just one notch down. So we got our first letter set over here at I, our second letter over here set at P. And now we're going to do Kevin's pattern. And I think I'll leave it right on 4. I'll leave it nice and wide, give that stitching a little bit more opportunity to work. Looks like our camera's focused right now. Good, 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 good. All right, take up, arm up. This is Kevin's stitch now. It is part of the combination patterns. IP. Here we go. Wilma is getting frustrated with me because I'm going so slow. So I'm going to finish off Kevin's stitch, not at full power, but I'm going to give it probably about 45% power. All right, you ready? I hear you, Wilma. I hear you, hon. All right, here we go. Ha ha! Doggy. I don't know if the camera can even catch that. We were hitting probably about 600 stitches per minute there. That thing was just blasting. What a hoot. What a hoot. Oh, that's a fun one. Yeah, if I were doing this one, I might change some of the settings as far as stitch width and stitch length, but that's quite a lovely stitch. It's kind of a mountain stitch almost, isn't it? Kind of a mountain stitch. Yeah. Let me give these threads a clip and we'll take a little closer look at it. Yeah, you don't generally want to sew incredibly complex decorative stitches as fast as I just did, but Wilma was getting frustrated with me, so I kind of sped it up a little bit. All right. Take a look at the stitch that Kevin picked. Again, it's one of the combination patterns, IP. Yeah, that's a fun one. And again, if we sew with a different needle and a different thread, we could get even better stitch pattern definition. Very nice. Is there lock stitching on this last one? Yeah, very nice. All right, well, let's move into some of the other patterns now. I'll do a little bit more sewing on 100% cotton. I've got 2 layers of it. 2 layers of 100% cotton with a stiffener. But then I want to move into some of the other materials like the leathers and the denim and really give some of these stitches a chance to shine. So I'm going to show you the patterns one more time. And if there's another pattern that you haven't seen yet that you want to see, go ahead and write those 2 letters down. And I'll go ahead and see if I can present that stitch next. So first of all, the primary pattern's on top. Those again are our primary patterns on top. The only one we won't use during this live stream is the BS one. The BS one again is if you're putting a plastic fashion disc or a cam into the machine, then you would set your control on the special setting, the BS setting. Then we got the combination patterns down below. Those are all of our combination patterns. Some of them we've already done, but we can certainly do them again. We can certainly do some of the combination patterns again on a different material. I had a perfect shot just a second ago. Now the camera always said, "Nah, I don't want to look at it anymore." There we go. And there are some 401As that I've worked on where the pattern display inside of here has been removed or damaged, and the person doesn't have an owner's manual like Beth does. So then you're totally lost because you don't know where to set the controls if you don't have this display. So if you're in that situation, hopefully this live stream, if you're in a situation where yours is damaged and you can't read it, you'll be able to tell what the settings are so you can set yourself up for success with some of these really cool patterns that Wilma is excited to show off for us today. There we go. Oh, Jenny wants to see, let's see, Kathy, let me write these down. Let's see, Kathy, Kathy King wants to see HN. And Jenny wants to see HO. Cool. All right, so I'm going to do these next ones. We've done GL so far. We've done BQ. We've done IP, and now we're going to do HN and HO. Wasn't there a train thing that was HO, right? Am I right? There was a train thing back in the day, HO train sets or something like that. I believe so. Yeah. All right, close the lid. Okay, so let's do our change. This is for Kathy King. We're going to do H. We'll have to move this one up a little bit. Move that right over to H. And then we have to move this one over to N. Actually, yeah, let's see here. There we go. So again, when you're setting these, like the ones that I have on the paper over here, we're setting Kathy's. We set the H first, which is on this side, and we push this in and adjust it up or down. And then we set the second side, which is the N, and we pull this white one towards us, and we rotate it up or down, and then release it so it snaps into place. Okay? Don't let it fly. Just kind of let it in slowly, like you saw me do. We'll leave everything else set the same here. So let's do Kathy King's next. Cool. All right, here we go. This is for our good friend Kathy King. And Wilma says, I got this. I got this. Yeah, you do. All right, let's do it, hon. Here we go. Slow down, Wilma. Slow down, Wilma. Take your time, hon. Oh, that's a fun one. Great choice, Kathy. I love that. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Ooh. That's a pretty one. Very pretty stitch. Let's go ahead and pull that out and take a closer look at it. And again, you can change the look of this by going a little bit longer on the stitch, maybe changing the width of the stitch. Right now we're set on 4. Maybe you would go to 3. Maybe you would go to 2. There's so many opportunities to get a slightly different output as far as that stitch pattern display. Or you could use an embroidery needle and some embroidery thread or floss, something like that. But it's really a lovely stitch. Very nice choice. Yeah. Beautiful stitch. Beautiful. We'll turn over, look at that lock stitching. Yeah, beautiful stitching there as well. Again, the lock stitching you would do better with an embroidery type needle, get a little bit more fine definition. The top stitching is usually going to have a little bit more definition. It also looks like if you look right over here, see that puckering that we're getting? That little bit of puckering along the edge is telling me that our presser foot pressure may be a little bit too high right now. So I'm going to back it off just a little bit off camera. We'll back it off just a little bit. But some really, really lovely, lovely stitching all the way across the board. Let's do Jenny's now, HO. All right. So this control we don't have to change. We're already on H. This one we don't touch at all. But we have to move this one now over to O. So we're going to move it up just one click. Let it lock into place. Now, why don't we be rebels and go from 4 to 3 just to see what we get? We'll change that to 3. We'll leave our stitch length the same. And we could always re-sew Jenny's pattern. If we don't like the way it presents on a 3, we'll go to a 4. But I think it'll turn out pretty good. All right, this is for Jenny, who just turned a very young 70 years old. So happy birthday again to Jenny. She recently had a birthday. I think age is just a number, don't you? I don't think age means a hoot. It's how you live your life. It's, you stay active, you stay engaged in things like Beth is going to do with Wilma in her retirement. They're going to be creating beautiful things, and hopefully they circle back and share some of those things with us so we can see what they're making. And yeah, stay active, stay busy. Don't slow down. All right, this is for Jenny. Here we go. Oh, that's a cool one. I don't think I've ever sewn that one before. Isn't that something? It's almost like those, Susie, what are the necklaces you wear? Are those called waterfall necklaces? That looks like a waterfall necklace, doesn't it, Susie? The ones you wear? That's so pretty. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Yeah, use it on baby blankets. Absolutely. Isn't that something? Let me pull that out. We'll take a closer look at it. Isn't that something? That's one of my new favorite stitches now. I don't know what it's called officially, but I'm going to call it the waterfall or the baby blanket stitch, wouldn't you? And imagine if we used an embroidery needle and some embroidery thread to do that same stitch. Isn't that something? Well, that's what Wilma has done so far, and she's just getting warmed up. She's like, put me to work, put me to work. There's our lock stitching on the back. Equally lovely. Yeah, that is a pretty stitch. Very, very pretty. That stitch again is HO, HO. So if you got a 401A and you want to duplicate that stitch, we sewed HO with a stitch length in the fine region right around 25 to probably around 25 stitches per inch. And we sewed it on 3 as far as stitch width. It'd be interesting to sew the same thing on a 4 setting, which are max, and see how it changes the look of the stitch. Maybe we should do that for fun. We can just see if it changes it dramatically. It probably won't, not dramatically. See if there's any other stitches that people have picked. I don't see. Oh, Susie had typed dancing bird feet. Yeah, that does look like dancing bird feet, doesn't it? It does look like dancing bird feet. I'm going to sew a Jenny stitch one more time just for fun. And we'll set the stitch width instead of on 3. We'll set it on 4 this time and see if it changes the pattern dramatically. I don't think it will, but it'd just be interesting to see. We'll just zip down real quick. Wilma can sew this stitch probably in about 3 seconds if I gave her full gas, but yeah, we'll take it easy. All right, same stitch. Again, this is HO that Jenny picked out, but we're changing the stitch width from 3 to 4. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it does change it. It gives it a little bit more girth. Gives it a little bit more of a meatiness. Look at those side by sides. It's a little bit it's a little bit less delicate. When we move that stitch width from 3 to 4, it gives a little bit more meat to the bone. It doesn't give quite as delicate of a feeling. And one person might look at the one and say, I prefer that over the other. The other person will look at the original one that we did and they'll say, no, I want delicate. Like Jenny had said, I'm going to put this on baby blankets. And you might want that more delicate one to do that. You can kind of see them side by side. It does change the look. You can see the look of it. It's pretty pronounced. And it takes away the depth of the swivel of the stitch a little bit. That swivel look of the stitch is lost a little bit when we go too wide. So one would assume if we won't sew it again, but if we were to go from, we started at 3, we went up to 4, we kind of lost that swivel look of the stitch. It's not as delicate, it's not as dainty looking. It's a little bit more like, ugh. If we went down to 2, maybe we could make it even more dainty, even more delicate, even more petite looking, the stitch. Because we kind of lost it there a little bit, didn't we? Yeah, it's still a lovely stitch, nonetheless. Still a lovely stitch. Let's see what else we have. I don't think any other stitches have been picked out, so I'm just going to pick a couple out randomly from the primary and the combination. And we'll do a couple more stitch lines, and then we'll move to some other material. So I don't believe we've done FR. I'm going to put down FR as one. FR, that'll be Scott. And let's see here. FL. I'm going to do FL also. Those are combination patterns. And then we're going to do one of the primary patterns. Why don't we do the B? We'll do the BR. The BR is, I call it the McDonald's stitch. Let's do a BR. And that'll be one of our primary pattern stitches. So we're going to do FR, FL, and then BR. And then I'll move back and I'll show you the stitches again. If anyone wants to pick any, you can certainly pick any. And we'll move into some other materials. It's always fun to see how the stitches present. We'll duplicate some of the stitches that all of you picked, like the GL, the BQ, IP, HN, HO, FR, FL, BR. We'll duplicate those and maybe sew them on leather or denim to see how they present on a different material. So let's go to FR. Let's see here. FR, we got to go up. We got to go up here as well to R. So we've got our control set to FR. We're going to leave our stitch width on 3, stitch length the same. We'll do FR first, and then we'll do FL and BR. All right. This again is going to be FR, FR. All right, here we go. I'm going to show all 3 of these, and then I'll show all 3 of them. I'll show all 3 of them to you at the same time. But you'll get an initial glimpse right there. That's the FR that I just picked. And now we'll do FL. And I should also mention during the live stream, I haven't done so, and I don't know if anyone else has done it in the chat, because I oftentimes don't read the chat until much later. But one of our dear friends that's part of the family, she's part of the leadership team. She's a dear friend of Susie and mine, Teresa. All of you know Teresa. Teresa and Tim oftentimes will join together on the live streams, and Tim has a wonderful sense of humor. He's got also a wonderful creative spirit as well. He does a number of different jingles about different things that he shares with me, and I've shared some of those with you. But Teresa just went through some major surgery. So if you would just keep her in thought and prayer, she's in the hospital as we speak, had surgery yesterday, and she's going through a very long recovery process now. So please remember Teresa, and certainly remember Tim too, because when you're a caregiver for somebody that you love, that can be equally exhausting along with recovering from the surgery itself. So remember Teresa and Tim, if you'd be so kind. We would appreciate that. And if any of you have any needs or concerns or anything like that, we love to put the power of prayer to work and just show our love for all of you. So if you ever have any concerns or issues or anything of that nature, don't be afraid to share it. We would love to step into that gap and show that support and that love and kindness to all of you as well. So, okay, so let's do FL now. We just did FR. Now we're going to leave this one alone. We're already on F. We're going to go over here to L. We've got to go all the way to the bottom. I pull this white one towards me and then rotate it down to L. We'll leave our stitch width the same, leave our stitch length the same. And now we're going to be doing this next pattern. FL. You ready? Let's see here. Get that ready there. All right, Wilma, you all set? Let's do this next one. Here we go. Oh, that's a fun one, yeah. And this is another one of those patterns you can change the look of it dramatically by modifying stitch length and stitch width. Yeah, very, very nice. It's kind of a mountain stitch too, isn't it? And now we'll do BR. 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 So we're going to change this. Control first, we push this in. Take it up to B. Pull this control out, take it up to R. Okay. And this is going to be one of our, the last two we did were combination patterns. And this is going to be a primary pattern, one of the primary patterns. I think this is my McDonald's, I call it my McDonald's stitch, and you'll see why when you see it stitched out. Okay, you ready, Wilma? Let's do this last one, hon. Here we go. Yeah, I probably made that a little bit too short to really see the waviness of it, but you can kind of use your imagination. You can kind of see the McDonald's thing coming out of that a little bit. So let's take a look at all three of these I just did, FR, FL, and then BR. And then we'll switch materials. We've been sewing only on cotton with a stiffener. And now we'll move into some of the other materials so we can check them out. Yeah, beautiful stitching. Very, very nice. So you can see the totality of the stitching we've done on this. This is basically a fat quarter, so it's 100% cotton. You can pick them up at your sewing center. You can pick them up at Walmart. We got 2 layers of that with a stiffener. We've done all of this stitching during the live stream, starting with a straight stitch, kind of moving into a zigzag and moving into all the other patterns that the audience and myself picked. Very, very nice. And again, if we decided to switch over to an embroidery needle, we could even get more definition. But it's quite lovely, quite lovely. Yeah, very, very nice. I see one loopy thing that happened there on that one stitch. There we go. I fixed it. I had an extra little piece of thread there. I don't know why. So, but some really lovely, lovely stitching. I'm going to throw this fat quarter 100% cotton to the side. Let's move into something else, and we'll try stitching on some maybe some denim next. And we'll duplicate some of the same stitches that we've already done. We'll start with GL, and we'll do 2 layers of denim. We could do 4 layers. Why don't we do 4 layers? We don't have that many stitches to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, we got 8 stitches to do. I think I can fit 8 stitches on 4 layers of denim. So that's the sew off. And that again shows you why it's great to have a 0.9 amp motor, because going through 4 layers of heavy grade denim like this for Wilma, it's a hiccup. It's easy. So easy. Even with a needle that's getting a little bit more tired, we can still get the job done. So we'll start over here. I am going to increase my presser foot pressure a little bit because we're going through all of this denim now. We'll bump this up a little bit. We'll give her about probably 2 turns, 2.5 turns. Yeah, something like that. And again, as you're going through heavier multiple layers like this, bump your pressure up and then measure the results. See how it feeds, see how it looks. You're getting kind of a compressed stitching where you've got the stitch set long, but you're getting a real stubby stitch. That can be an indication that you've got a lack of presser foot pressure. Okay, so we're going to go all the way back to Beth's stitch. There's so many other stitches to pick, but we'll do GL again. We'll do GL, so we've got to adjust our setting here to G. We got to adjust this one to L. We'll leave our stitch width right around 3. Well, yeah, we'll leave it on 3. We'll leave our setting in the fine region, so we're right around 25 stitches per inch. And now we're going to be sewing, instead of sewing through 2 layers of cotton with a stiffener, we're going through 4 layers of denim. And again, we're using a universal size 9014 needle with Coats & Clark dual duty XP thread. We'll see what we think of that. And we'll make adjustments if we have to. All right. So here's Beth's stitch, GL. Here we go. Oops, we're looking at the wrong spot. There we go. I had you looking at the upper tension. Sorry about that. All right, so that's Beth's stitch. Now we're going to just jump into the very next stitch. We'll see if we can get all the stitches that we've demonstrated that were picked by all of you, but we'll do it on denim this time, 4 layers, and then we'll jump into some leather after that. And then finally, we'll wrap up sewing in a circle, which is kind of my trademark. I always like to wrap up sewing in a circle. It's kind of like coloring in a circle, but coloring outside of the lines. It's always fun to do things. Remember that we're all kids at heart, right? We're all kids at heart, and it's fun to be kids again. So now we're going to do Susie's BQ. We'll do Susie's BQ. We'll change this up to B. We'll change this over to Q. And now we're going to do Susie's stitch that we did previously on the 100% cotton. You can already get a look of Beth's stitch, which is absolutely spectacular. And again, that's going through a lot of denim. Going through a lot of denim. All right, so here's Susie's stitch next. That is such a delicate stitch with that short stitch setting. We're gonna have to kind of squint our eyes a little bit to see it. Very, very delicate stitch. It's lovely. Very, very nice. Now we're going to go to Kevin's IP. So I'm going to change our setting over here to I, which is all the way down to the bottom. I push this in, rotate it down to I. And we take this and go over to P, which is only 1 click down. And we're ready to do Kevin's stitch. Okay, this is Kevin's stitch. Get my take-up arm all the way up. And then we're going to do Kathy King's stitch next. Kathy King's stitch is going to be HN. So we just move this one, push it in, and go 1 up to H. And then N, we have to go down to N. There we go. That one's done. I'm going to make one quick adjustment because I'm seeing that our stitching is so fine. I'm just going to raise that width from 3 to 4, which is how we stitched a lot of these to begin with, and give it a little bit more definition because it's really hard to see on this denim. The denim has a mix of blue and white with it. We're sewing with white thread, and it's just kind of hard to see. So we'll do Kathy's next. HN, and then we'll move into Jenny's after that, HO. Perfect. Yeah, going from 3 to 4 helps as far as seeing that stitching, because we're so narrow on some of these. It's almost, you have to kind of squint your eyes to see it. Okay, so that is HN, and now we're going to go to HO. I'm trying to duplicate all the stitching we've already done, and we're just doing it on a different material now. Just doing it on a different material. I should say a different material and a lot thicker material, 4 layers of denim. Okay, so now let's set it up for Jenny, HO. We're already on H on this side. So all we're going to do is change this one, the white one, we pull it towards us. That's HO for Jenny. And now we'll go through these 4 layers of denim with this pattern we had done previously on 2 layers of cotton with a stiffener. Get that taken all the way up. Here we go. Yeah, very nice. Very, very nice. I probably should have done Jenny's on 3 because we lost that waviness again. We lost that waviness, but at least we can see the stitching with this blue-white type denim color. All right, now we're going to do my stitch, the FR. We'll do FR next. Set this one on R. Yeah, very nice. And now do FL. I wish you could feel the thickness of this denim, these 4 layers. It feels like we're sewing a book. Very, very thick stuff, dense stuff. Okay, so we did FR. Now we do FL. Just changing that one. Do this next stitch, and then we have 1 stitch left, the BR. Hopefully I have enough room. I just tucked in the space enough that I think we'll be able to fit that last stitch in there okay. All right, here we go. Oh yeah, that's a nice one. I like that on denim too. It really gives, we just have to tighten it up maybe a little bit, make it a little bit shorter in the fine region to tighten those up a little bit on those 4 layers of denim. All right, our final stitch on the denim, we're going to do BR. But you can see already, oh boy, that is some crazy thick stuff. We've done all of that stitching on it already. We'll do our last column of stitching, and then we'll move into some leather. Beautiful lock stitching as well. So we're doing our final stitch, BR, and then we've duplicated all the stitches that either you folks have picked or I picked. Let's see, BR next. Go up here, just at the B, just to R. Once you get the groove of things, and certainly Wilma is helping us out as well, it's really quite easy to change between stitches, isn't it? The only awkward thing is sometimes you have to open the lid and refresh your recollection as what are the two letters again? But once you get the letters written down, kind of like I've done here, and you have certain ones that you want to duplicate again, it's easy to change between the modes of the machine with those knobs moving so freely now. It's effortless. It's so effortless. And Jenny's machine, her 500A will be just as easy to change. Okay, I've got it set on BR. I think this is our final stitch. All right, here we go. I'm going to change midstream here. I'll bring the needle out of the material. I'm going to go ahead and go a little bit wider. So you're going to see a pattern change is how it presents. And then I'm going to change from the fine region. I'm going to go a little bit longer, see if we can get that McDonald's look just a little bit more clearly on it. Here we go. Yeah, that helped a little bit. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so for the McDonald's symbol, the BR, I would definitely go with the stitch width of 4. You get a little bit better look of that stitch with the 4, and then I made it just a tiny little bit longer. We were in the fine range. I'm still near the fine range, but we didn't go quite as short. Kind of brightens up that stitch just a little bit. But 4 layers of denim, I mean, there are a lot of machines you can buy over the counter now. I call them the disposable machines. Probably what that person back in the 1950s or 60s ended up trading in Wilma to get one of those disposable machines. They would have trouble sewing 4 layers of denim. A lot of them would. But Wilma did it just like a hiccup. It was so easy. So doggone easy. There we go. Kind of hard to see the white thread against the white blue denim, but you can kind of catch a glimpse of it. Very, very nice. So you can go sideways too. That might be easier to see some of these patterns from the side. Four layers of denim. How many layers of denim do I think Wilma could do realistically? I think that's up to her. That's up to her and Beth. Beautiful stitching. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. Our lock stitching, equally gorgeous. This is our lock stitching on the back. Very, very nice. And look at the thickness of the denim we went through again. That's thicker than the cuff of a pair of jeans that you would go through. That is the thick of thick right there. I think Wilma could do about 12 layers of denim. I'm just going to say it. I would probably go up to a size 100 needle. I would go up to a size 100 needle, but I think Wilma could, if Beth had a project and you needed to go through 8 to 10 layers of denim, no problem. No problem at all. I mean, 4 layers was not even, Wilma was chuckling the whole time like, are you going to give me a challenge or what? Beautiful stitching on the denim. Let's move into some leather. And I'll put on a little bit of Christmas music. If y'all want to get acquainted with each other for a second as I take a couple sips of tea, if you've never done public speaking before, it is exhausting. So I'm going to catch my breath a little bit, see if I can get a little bit more Christmas music on my phone. And then we'll move forward onto some leather sewing. And we'll see if we can wrap this up soon. Looks like we've been going about 2 hours and 30 minutes. I know that's a long time, but we've covered a lot in this live stream as well. Not just the sewing itself, but the features, the functions of the machine, some practical tips, some maintenance tips. We've covered a lot. So time well worthwhile. All right, a little bit of Christmas music, and then we'll move into some leather sewing. Yeah, perfect timing. Let me pause this real quick. First thing I want to do is I want to buzz down, and we haven't really given Wilma a chance to flex her muscles very much and demonstrate just how strong she is. We can talk about a 0.9 amp motor and the fact that it's the biggest motor that was ever put in any of the Slant-O-Matics. It's 0.3 of an amp larger than a 201-2, 0.3 of an amp larger than 1591s. A lot of those muscle machines that I've shown on this channel that have that potted motor, and I've gone through crazy amounts of leather on some of those machines. And Wilma's muscle is actually bigger with the motor at a 0.9 than any of those machines. And now that the 401A has been declared officially the king of Singer sewing machines, we've got to let the king flex his muscles a little bit. Wilma can take a break for a second and just let the spirit of that 401A demonstrate a little bit of its muscle by going through 2 layers of genuine cowhide, probably about 8 ounces of leather, 7 ounces of leather, I would say. That's what we're going to demonstrate first. And then I'm going to add one more layer to it and go through 3 layers of this genuine cowhide. I'm going to have to cut this. It's a little bit too long. But this is what we're going to do second. That's probably about 10 ounces of leather, I would say, conservatively. And it's just to show that not only can Wilma sew the most beautiful stitches, but she's also incredibly strong. And I'm guessing that that's a trait of the women in that family down in Louisiana. I'm guessing, and I've never met Beth, but I'm guessing that Beth is a very, very strong woman from a standpoint of getting things done and moving mountains. Wilma was the same way. And if there are granddaughters or daughters or others in the family, other ladies, they're going to be equally strong. And I think these 2 layers and even these 3 layers are going to be a little bit easy for her, but we'll give it a try. Now I just have to decide what stitch am I going to put down on these 2 layers of leather. You get that into position. I'm going to add just a little bit more presser foot pressure. And you might have seen me cutting that round piece of leather. I did that with the Guggenheim shears. And we always try to give you all an opportunity to win a pair of these shears. They are the cat's, they're the cat's meow when it comes to cutting any material. I can cut through leather with them. I can cut through canvas with them. Whatever I want to cut, I'll cut through them. And they get the job done effortlessly, just effortlessly. So I'm going to try to pick a stitch, or maybe you all can help me pick a stitch to try to lay down on this leather. We're going to go 2 layers. I'm going to show you the combination patterns again. And I'm going to show you the primary patterns. And someone help me pick a stitch to lay down on 2 layers. And then we'll lay down another stitch when we add that 3rd layer of genuine cowhide. Again, we're going to be sewing about 10, close to 12 ounces of leather. It's going to be crazy. But again, Wilma and the women of this family, woo, doggy, they are strong. They're very, very strong. Okay, so let me show you the patterns again. I'll show you the primary ones on top. And again, the only one we won't sew is the BS. BS is for using one of the plastic fashion discs, one of the patterns. Here's the combination patterns. Trying to get the camera right as far as the lighting here. So those are the patterns we have a choice of as we try to go through these 2 layers of genuine cowhide. I mean, this is the thick of thick, but we're going to be adding a 3rd layer in just a moment, putting Wilma really to the test, and crowning this machine officially the king of Singer sewing machines. Everyone gives a unique name to their machine, and this is in memory and honor of Wilma, Beth's mom. But from this point forward, 401As that come onto the workbench, you'll see me, I'll be referring to them as the king of Singer sewing machines. So we'll see if anybody has a pattern they want to see. Nobody picked a pattern, so I am going to pick a pattern then. And I'm really fond of Jenny's HO. I like Jenny's HO pattern a lot. I think that's really a gorgeous pattern. So we're going to set up the machine to do HO. Let's see here. Change this down to H. I think I'm on G. Ha, there's H. And set this on O. And we're going to go a little bit wider. I'm okay with going shorter. We'll stay right about there. We're still right on the edge of the fine range. So we're going to do Jenny's pattern. We're going to try to do Jenny's pattern. And again, we're not using a leather needle, folks. We don't have the benefit of that slicing edge of a leather needle to get through these 2 layers of leather, genuine cowhide. We're going to be punching through them with the power of that 0.9 amp motor. The universal type needle by Schmetz is a very sharp needle, but it's got a slightly rounded point. So with a slightly rounded point, it's designed to pass through those woven materials and other materials like that. It's not really designed for leather sewing, but I do it all the time. And this needle's already gotten a heck of a workout. So I'm hoping we can get the job done. I'm also going to check my thread. We're getting really low on bobbin thread, but I think we can finish up the live stream with the sewing we have left and still get the job done well. So we're going to try Jenny's stitch HO. see if we can get through these 2 layers, and then we'll move into a final sew off of strength testing for the king of Singer sewing machines. And we're going to go through 3 layers of genuine cowhide. I don't think I've demonstrated sew off this difficult in quite a while. So keep your fingers crossed that I haven't bitten off more than we can chew. I don't think we have. All right, here we go. 2 layers. And we're not just sewing a straight stitch or a zigzag like a lot of the sissy YouTube channels out there. I'm just going to say it. There's a lot of sissy YouTube channels out there where they talk about heavy duty sew offs. And most of us in this live stream type setting would laugh because they're so easy. We're going to be doing a very ornamental stitch through 2 layers of genuine cowhide. So this ought to be fun. All right, keep your fingers crossed. Here we go. Come on, you got her, girl. Great job. Great job. I should have set it on 3 and made this machine work even more. Very nice. We needed a little bit more upper tension. That's okay. I'll bump our upper tension up just a little bit for our next sew off because we're going to be going through 3 layers of genuine cowhide. 3 layers. And I shouldn't hold Wilma back. I wasn't giving enough gas to start out on that launch. I should have done that. I should have given more gas. But this is at least how this stitch presents with the settings we had. We're not all the way into the fine range as much as we were. We have a stitch width of 4. We probably should have gone 3, but you can get an idea at least. The pattern is just absolutely gorgeous. Again, not with a leather needle. A leather needle would have helped us quite a bit. But we used a universal needle. I'm going to go across and just show you. This is Jenny's pattern right here, HO. If we go to a 3 setting on stitch width, we're going to tighten this up more and get more of that bevel look to it. Really get a lovely, lovely stitch out of it. Look at that lock stitching. Yeah, lock stitching is also spot on, but we could have used maybe just a little bit more upper tension. That's a lot of leather to go through when you're punching through it with a universal needle. It's a lot of leather. But like I usually say, we were not pushing it far enough yet. That's the leather we just went through. Now we're going to take a swing at 3 layers. And I'm going to end up covering up our stitching here. I'm sorry about that, but I've got to do that to add that 3rd layer. We'll put them opposite so we're able to see that stitching a little bit more easily. And if I break a needle, I break a needle. I'll go ahead and get another one in there. But we're going to do our best to try to get through one more sew off on this crazy thick leather. If you see it from the side, that's what we're going to be going through. 3 layers. 3 layers of genuine cowhide. That's probably close to 12 ounces of leather. That's thicker than a man's belt or thicker than a woman's belt. Let's just say it's thicker than a biker's belt. Bikers like to wear those thick belts. This is thicker than what they wear. You can see it right there down at the needle. So now I need to pick what pattern I'm going to sew. Let me pick a pattern to sew through 3 layers of this genuine cowhide. I might pick a pattern we haven't picked yet. I think I'm going to do HL. We haven't done HL yet. HL is kind of a building block pattern. You'll see what it looks like when we get done with it. I think you'll like it. I like it. And we're going to go to HL next. I hope I'm not going too fine on this. I just made the adjustment. I'm going to go a little bit more narrow. What did I say? HL, right? HL. HL is one of the combination patterns, kind of a building block one. All right, let's change it up. We're already set on H over here. Now we're going to go down to L. I hope you can see that from the side, folks. This is not an easy sew off, not even for a strong 401A, not even for the king of Singer sewing machines. But we're going to give our best to it and see if we can get this done through 3 layers, making one more fine adjustment. I'm debating if I should go with a number 3 or number 4 as far as stitch width. I'm going to get a tighter pattern. It's going to be more defined if I go with the 3, but I'm also going through 3 layers of heavy grade leather. So I'm going to give it a shot. If we start to choke up a little bit, then I'll pause. I'll bring the needle up out of the material and we'll go to 4. But I think we can pull this off. I hope we can pull this off. I hope the Schmetz needles have never really failed me, but we are pushing this 90-14 to the limit here. We're pushing it to the limit with this much leather after I've already run it through all the sew-offs that we've done on camera and off. So I hope we can get this done. I think we can. What does Willy Wonka say? Willy Wonka says, never doubt what no one is sure of. No one's sure at this point. So let's put it to use and see how we do. All right, here we go. I feel like we need a drum roll or something, maybe a bell ring. All right, here we go. Come on, girl. You got it. Oh, that is so tough. Come on, baby. You got it. You got it. Dig in, dig in, dig in, dig in. Oh, my goodness gravy. Oh, my goodness gravy. Woo, doggy. Oh, my goodness gravy. Oh, wow. We had a little bit of a hiccup right there. The needle's starting to get dull. See that right there? But other than that, oh, my goodness. I still have more leather sewing to do too. I don't think we'll do canvas this time. We could do canvas, but oh, wow. Wow. I got to show you the thickness of this from the side. That's what we just went through right there. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, it's not unbelievable. You just saw it on the live stream. You can't fake that. You can't fake that. Unbelievable. Look at that from the side. And our lock stitching is really good. We just had one little hiccup because our needle's getting dull. One little hiccup right over here where the thread went astray. We were spot on, spot on, spot on, spot on, spot on, right towards the end. Just a little bit of a hiccup right there on the top part. I'll tell you one thing. I don't think I've ever seen a 401 or a 401A sew through that much leather except for on this channel. So I am incredibly satisfied with the result considering what we put this needle through. Wilma can handle it without any trouble. But after we've done all the sewing we've done, you know, we started here. We went to here. 4 layers of denim. Then we do 3 layers of genuine cowhide. Schmetz needle is starting to get a little tired, just a little tired. But we're not done yet. Oh, I forgot. We also did this too on the same needle. All of that on the same needle. And that's why I love Schmetz needles. We're friends with those folks. They love us. We love them. They follow us. We follow them. And unless I find a better option, I'm going to stick with Schmetz needles. I just am. But I think we should probably wrap this up. We're right around 2 hours and 56 minutes. I love doing a sew around in a circle, but I want to give Wilma every chance to shine. So I'm going to do a quick needle change because I think we push this needle about as far as we can push it, going through all the leather and the denim and all the off-camera sew-offs as well. I did some canvas sewing off camera. I'm going to put in a fresh size 90-14 needle, and we'll do our final sew-off in a circle. And I'll let Beth choose the stitch, or if Beth has had to step away for some reason, I'll let somebody else pick the stitch that we're going to sew in a circle through a single layer of genuine cowhide. I'll set that right there. Put on a little bit of Christmas music while I'm doing a needle change, kind of like a wardrobe change. Good gravy. Our cameras are going crazy. Oh, I got to show you guys how to thread this machine too. It's a little tricky. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause the music. I wanted to mention a couple of other things real quick before I forget. That previous machine that I presented, the new home that is going to be heading back to Michigan in the next couple of days. Remember that person had taken it into a sew and back. They totally goofed the machine up, and then she shipped it to us from Lexington, Kentucky. They were down here visiting family, and now that the machine is done, it's been live streamed. I'm going to be shipping it back to Michigan to Catherine. Catherine had an issue with the light bulb. It had a candelabra style light bulb in it. It was horrible as far as the lighting. I showed that to you in the live stream. I found a replacement that we got at Lowe's, and I wanted to show you what it looks like. So if you've got a similar machine that takes a candelabra light bulb and you've been struggling with the incandescent bulb being so pathetically dim, this will be an alternative for you. It's made by General Electric, and it is called an E12 candelabra base. E12 candelabra base. It's a specialty LED bulb, specialty LED bulb by General Electric. And it's actually designed for refrigerators, apparently. You see the shot there. but it works nicely in that new home sewing machine. And there are other machines similar to it that would also be able to accommodate that candelabra E12 base. So they're available at Lowe's. They're probably available at Home Depot, but you'll want to take a look at an alternative to what you have. The number that they label it as is a T4. You see that right there, T4 E12 candelabra base. And it works beautifully in that new home machine that we just presented. Okay, so I wanted to mention that. The other thing I'll mention real quick is the threading on this 401A is fairly straightforward, but there's one tricky spot, and it's right at the end of the threading line. So I wanted to show that to you real quick because I didn't show that to you before. So we obviously have two spool pins on top. We come off of the spool pin. We come through this thread point right here. On the front, you draw the thread from front to back, just snap into the place. Drop down to your upper tension. You can go through either set of discs on an upper tension like this because it's designed to accommodate dual needle sewing. It has 3 discs. So you can go through the front 2 or the rear 2. It doesn't matter. So right now we go through those discs. We drop around. You then come through the take-up spring right here. You draw it up so the thread saddles in that little spot right there in that little saddle notch. Bring the thread behind this thread guide. Thread your take-up arm from right to left. And then you're going to drop down here to this thread guide right adjacent to the upper tension. Just draw the thread in from right to left. There's another thread guide right there. You can see it right there. Let me turn our light on just for a second. Maybe that'll help. Yeah, it doesn't help, does it? It's better without the light. Draw that thread right through this thread guide here from right to left. There's another thread guide right there. Now here's the tricky one that most people miss. There's also a thread guide right there. It's a little slat. Let me get in there. See that little slat? You've got to draw the thread in from right to left and get it centered on the needle bar, and then you thread the needle from front to back. But don't miss this one, otherwise your sewing will suffer. Don't miss that one right there. The other ones are fairly easy to see. That one's kind of a thing that a lot of people, they don't even thread through there, and then they struggle with their stitching. So I wanted to show that to you, just make sure we had that covered when you set up your 401A, the King of Singers for sewing, okay? So now we're going to sew in a circle. It's kind of my thing. It's kind of my thing, the way I roll. And I'll give the owner, if the owner is still in the live stream, I'll give her the chance to pick the stitch of her choice to do this final sew off. We might run out of bobbin thread. If we do, then we run out of bobbin thread. We're pretty low right now. We're pretty doggone low. But we think we might have enough to finish it off. We might have enough to finish it off, hopefully. So I'm going to show the primary patterns again, the combination patterns. And then if Beth is still in the live stream, she can pick the pattern of her choice for this final sew off. There's so much more sewing we could do, but we're kind of out of time. Come on there, camera. So those are the primary patterns. We probably don't need to do a BL. A BL is just a zigzag. We're not going to do a BS because that's for cam functions, plastic cam functions. And then we've got the combination patterns down here. Those are quite spectacular. All the way on the far end of JP. All the way to EO. EIEIO. EIEIO. I don't know why my camera does that. It gets dark all of a sudden. It's kind of goofy. It's a goofy camera. It's really a good camera, but it's still goofy. Maybe if I put a little light on there or something, maybe that'll help it. Does that light help maybe? Oh yeah, that light helps a lot. So it's a lighting issue. Good gravy. Thank goodness for auxiliary lighting sometimes, huh? And those are the primary up there again. So if Beth is still here, she may have had to step away. But if she didn't step away and she wants to give me a set of letters for the final sew off we're going to do on this wonderful 401A, Wilma, then we will do that final sew off in a circle. I'll just have to pick some music. Looks like FL. Oh, wait, no, BN. BN or FL. BN or FL. BN or FL. Let me see what BN is. I think we've done BN before. BN or FL. We've done FL, I know. That was one of the ones I picked. BN or, oh yeah, BN is cool. That's kind of like that little pyramid thing. All right, we'll do BN because we've done FL already. I don't think we've done BN. I don't see BN on my list. So let's set it up for BN and we'll race around and do our final sew off now and wrap this up. All right, so we'll set this side to B, set this side to N. We're going to leave it on 3. We get a little bit better definition. Fine. I'm going to go up just a little bit on the stitch length, make it a little bit shorter. Give me a little bit more maneuverability. Okay, again, if we run out of bobbin thread, all I can say is I'm doing my best. But hopefully we get to the finish line. And I think I'll finish with, let's see what we have here. What did I do? It's not really a race to the finish things. What do we got? Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. All right, I picked out the music. Hold on, don't get excited. Calm down. All right, I've got the final music sew off in a circle. There's so many other sew offs we could have done, but you know what? We covered a lot of ground. And this gives Beth and Wilma a great foundation to start with. And they can always refer back to this live stream if they want to review some things or refresh their recollections on things or whatever. And also give one shameless little plug for this this wax. When I got done with all the mechanics, verifying electrical and all that, and making adjustments, some repairs on Wilma, I wanted to go over her with some wax too to protect that finish. And so this is the wax that I use. You can use any wax, but I love this stuff and I love the way it smells. And so I went over all of Wilma with this, kind of just spruced her up a little bit after being in storage and being set aside for a while. And so not only does she sew beautifully, but she looks beautiful and she smells good too. Yeah. All right. Final sew off in a circle. And we're starting with a fresh Schmetz needle. So hopefully Wilma has a lot of fun with this. And we'll go a little bit faster on certain points once I get the thread cut, etc. So, all right. Y'all take care. God bless. Thank you to Beth so much for the opportunity of having Wilma in the workshop for this extended period of time and this spa day. She's excited to get home. When I send her home, she'll have a fresh, not only the needle that we're sewing with now, but I'll put a brand new needle in. So you'll have a brand new Schmetz needle, and she'll have a fresh bobbin in her as well. So you'll be able to sit down right away and have fun together. All right? That's what it's about, is having fun. All right, take care. Thanks to the leadership team. And we'll wrap this up with this final sew off and a little bit of Christmas music. Take care. I'm going to change patterns real quick to the other one that Beth had, the FL. Here we go. Nice.